listeners. Welcome to a little Q&A, a little members only Q&A.
Members only, I love the way that sounds.
Ritzy. I don't know what that means. We've got some questions over here, so if you see us glancing over here, Caroline's iPad is over on the counter, and we're gonna dive right in. You guys asked a bunch of questions in Slack, and we thought it would be fun just to put together a little video answering some of these. They range from business to life to random stuff, so here we go. Danny Ives asked, what are your 2019 travel plans?
Ooh.
Go for it.
Not much as of right now.
I think the biggest thing that we have that's, pretty much 100% locked in is we're going to Norway to speak at fellow WAIMer, is that Norway dance?
Well, it was like fireworks. It was like,
oh.
Burr, 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 burr.
Oh, wow. To speak at fellow WAIMer Thomas's event in Norway, in Oslo.
How cool is that?
In April of 2019.
Neither of us have ever been to Scandinavia.
Nope.
You have Norwegian roots.
I do. My great grandmother, I wrote a report on her. She was from Oslo.
I think you should bust that puppy out and do a sequel.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't think we have any plans locked in. Typically, we really like to do 2 to 3 big trips a year.
I have a sneaking suspicion that before long we will do some sort of tropical trip because you always get antsy.
I really get antsy.
Yeah.
And when it gets cold, I'm like, oh, I want it to be hot again.
So we've gone to Todos Santos last year. We went to Tulum last year.
Before.
We went to Todos Santos this year. We went to Tulum last year.
Yeah.
So some type of tropical
yeah.
vacay
We may
is in
just
the works.
go back to like Cabo because it's really close and it's a lot less money. So
and it's very nice.
Yeah. But where are you going, Danny? And if you guys want to chime in with your own answers to these questions, if there's a question you're like, ooh, I want to answer this one, feel free to do it in the comments.
Where should we go?
Is there any place amazing that you've been to? You're like, you have to go here. We've been to Iceland, so you don't have to say that one. We went to Italy as well. We went to Tahiti a couple years ago.
We do want to go back to Europe, but we always get stuck on like where exactly we want to be our next trip.
There's so many choices.
We've talked about Portugal, we've talked about Greece.
All right, we're never gonna get through this.
So anyway.
All right, Ray Chili asked, and I feel weird reading these.
We'll put it in your lap.
Off the screen, so I'm bringing it over here.
Okay.
Do you believe you have to scale your business by growing your team, or are there other ways? I ask because I'm in the very beginning stages and trying to figure out which is the best way forward for me.
I think that the first thing, if you don't want, I think it depends on what you want, is what I should say. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to manage people, or you find managing people cumbersome, or just it's not a good fit for us, some people are very good at it, then I think the first thing to do is to figure out how you can milk as much efficiency out of your time, your marketing efforts, your products with you just right now. And you can do that by sort of cheating it by like outsourcing a couple of things, or, but I guess you might consider that scaling your team.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you define as growing your team, because we use freelancers and other people for various projects and things, and I don't consider them a part of our team because they all get paid kind of randomly. We use them randomly. It's not like every month they do stuff. Caroline had an assistant before. I had 7 employees before with the I Wear Your Shirt business, and just for us, it's just managing the expectations and the just the needs of someone else, it's just taxing on us, so we choose not to do that.
And so it depends on what you're doing, but like I do think it's possible to grow without a team by being more efficient.
I think we're pretty much a good example of that.
Absolutely. Do I think that you reach a point in your business where the mathematics of just the amount of work that you're able to do comfortably, outgrows you? Depending on what your goals are, yeah, that's a total possibility. But hopefully, in being with WAIM, you have kind of defined what your enough goal is, and you can kind of see if you think that you being one person, you think that that enough goal is achievable with the amount of work hours that you have during the day.
There is an article that I wrote about outsourcing your weaknesses, as Caroline touched on a second ago. There's an exercise in there to basically like write out all the things that you have to do for your business and maybe even for your life. And if there's a bunch of stuff that you just really hate doing, that may mean that you want to hire a virtual assistant or someone who actually likes doing those things, because people like doing spreadsheet stuff and like doing kind of day-to-day management tasks that you may hate.
I also think the very last variable that I'll mention is just patience and time. So it's like, yeah, if you want to scale really quickly, you may not be able to, pack in all of those hours with just you. But if you think about it, if you stretch out your timeline, you have as many hours as you need to, or as many hours as your patience will allow. And I strongly believe that in business, some of the things and the efforts that you do have this compounding effect. So like our early days of me just slogging away with the newsletter or the blog on Made Vibrant week after week after week by myself, that had a compounding effect over time. I just had to have the patience to kind of write it out. So,
all right, let's move on. We really are going to be here for 2 hours.
But I like to talk.
I know, but you're the one who said before we started recording how long we're going to do this. And we don't have time. All right, this is actually an anonymous question. I mean, I know who the person was that asked it, but they asked to remain anonymous, which I totally believe. This is a hard-hitting question, and I kind of put it at the beginning.
I'm super excited.
So they asked, how much do you think being a white male, I'm guessing they're talking to me, but they might be talking to Caroline, plays to your success? I would love to be vulnerable and try to experiment like you guys, but I don't want to look like I can't do the job just because race, gender is already a barrier.
100%.
100% what?
I 100% obviously can't fully relate, but I think that this is this question comes from a very real place, which is that in our society, and you obviously should probably speak to this more, but in our society, especially, I'll speak for white because I'm not a white male, but I am a white person, a Caucasian person.
You are?
I am.
Oh.
In our society, Caucasian people have the presumption of competence, I would say. And maybe that skews depending on male-female gender dynamics, but certainly compared to people of color, I feel like where this question is coming from is that there's a presumption of competence on white people or a presumption of success. And then you kind of, if you slip up or whatever, then that's taken away, versus if you're a person of color, I feel like you have to work for every single thing that you get. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the way that our society is set up, and that's not fair, and I hope that it's changing, and I want to be a part of that change, but I 100% think that, to answer your question, us being white certainly plays a factor in our success.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate.
I think the fact that I never have to think about it probably answers the question.
Yeah.
Which I think is like the definition of privilege, right? So, but the one thing I will say, and I've said this before with many other things, is that I do believe that if you are willing to do your own thing, own your own way of doing it, not let other people get you down, even though it may be tough, you can succeed. And it doesn't matter the color of your skin, it doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter these things. Like, there are people we all see in society who do succeed. Now, is it more difficult? 100%, like Caroline said. But I do think that sometimes it can be a little bit of a limiting factor. And again, I'm speaking about this from my white male place, but it can be a little bit of a limiting factor that we put on ourselves, that we're afraid of success, or we're afraid to reach different levels because we're gonna get knocked down or whatever. It's gonna happen no matter what. So I just think it's one of those things where—
What's the alternative, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I would say—
You can't change the cards that you've been given, so it's like the only choice you have is to play the hand that you're dealt.
Lean into it, and then just know that you may get some resistance, and that's gonna happen.
Yeah, but it is harder.
All right, Latasha's question.
I wish that it wasn't.
All right, unfortunately, I have to take a small detour because
Why?
Caroline's settings are driving me insane on her iPad. So it would be on a— I guess we've been talking longer than 2 minutes. No?
Fixed it.
Sorry for that little uninterrupted interruption there.
I feel like we should do a podcast episode on that, because it's the last question that we answered, because
I thought you were talking about like how to change the brightness on a—
No, and it's like, it's so, I think we can all admit that talking about things like race or gender, especially in these times, it's scary to talk about because you don't want to say the wrong thing. But the more and more stuff that I consume, I just realize that, like, it's more important to have the messy conversation than it is to just like be afraid.
It doesn't get any better if we just like push it under the rug.
Yeah.
It works.
So anyway.
Okay. Latasha's question. So this is a little bit of a long one, but let me try and get through it. What would you do if you were offered a long-term contract that was your ideal and current nonprofit client, but it's less money than you can make with other client contracts? Would you ask for a raise knowing that contract could potentially be blown to smithereens because of nonprofit budgets? So basically,
she has
her
ideal client.
She has her ideal client. They want to lock her in and be her one client, but she's going to make less money than if she took on more clients. What should she do? And
sorry, no, you go ahead.
You had it. Go.
I would say, first of all, actually sitting down and doing that math and saying, what does this look like for how much money I'm trying to make? How many other clients would I have to use to buffer at this rate that they are trying to pay me? And is that worth it? Like, I think in a very abstract sense, it's a lot harder decision to make. In a very concrete sense, it becomes a little bit more clear because you're like, oh, well, I actually can afford to take that on because it brings me more joy. That's the first step that I would do, is like actually get to the raw numbers of it. The second thing is, I would say, once you do that, If you find that it's not enough money for you to be making and you're now faced with the question of, do I go back to that nonprofit client and ask for more money? I would do the math and figure out exactly how much more money you would need to ask for. And then I would say, I don't think you risk anything by saying, hey guys, here's my rates, here's how much I think that I could do this project for. Would you be willing to compensate me, at this, like, are you able to compensate me at this rate? I don't think that they're gonna just walk away at that point, right? They might say, no, I'm sorry, we only have this amount of budget. And then you can make a real decision knowing that you at least asked for what you wanted to get paid.
It's hard to know because we're not that client and we don't know how they think.
But
However,
I don't think they'd walk away.
What I would say is just be brutally honest with them. And this is just kind of what my default is. And just tell them, even show them the numbers like, hey, the way that I've been working, like I have 3 or 4 clients, I make this amount of money. If I was just to be you, I would need to make that amount of money. Can we meet somewhere in there so that maybe you're not getting like the low ball offer that they had in the beginning or whatever they're offering, or you think they may be offering, and you're not going to make the same amount of money if you had lots of clients. But maybe just by telling them that, they can see, oh, well, we do want to lock you in, and yeah, we'd be willing to kind of come up to meet somewhere in the middle.
I would also say be really honest with yourself about your boundaries. Like if you're trying to talk yourself into this because it's a client that you really love, but you're locking them in at a rate that is unsustainable for you to work that amount of money for that little, or that amount of hours for that little amount of money, that ideal client pretty soon is going to become not so ideal because you're going to be resentful of the fact that you're working 24/7 on this project that's not kind of supporting your lifestyle. So be really honest with yourself about what your ideal lifestyle is. How many hours do you really want to be working? Like I said in the first step, go back, do that math, and then set that clear boundary.
Okay. This was a twofer. We had 2 people ask this question. We're going to give the credit to Racheli, but Amelia also asked this similar question. So Racheli asked, what's going on here?
I just am like excited.
Okay, cool.
I like this.
I didn't know if there was like a question dance that I was supposed to be doing. I'm also reading all the questions. Does that matter?
No, that's, okay. I dance, you read.
How has it been balancing your illness with launching and getting stuff done? This is to you. And would you have done anything differently in hindsight? Amelia's only caveat to that was, how did it affect the launch period of your brightest life?
Oh, interesting. All those questions are interesting. It affected things quite a bit.
Yeah.
The most, actually. It was really hard, and I think I was pretty honest about that. I couldn't really communicate about it during because I just had so little energy to be anywhere. Like you guys were probably like, is she around? Because I was just out of Slack. I was not doing anything. And there were a couple weeks there where I like literally couldn't get out of bed. But then even when I was recovering, I just couldn't take the mental weight of getting back into things. So it affected a lot of things. I'll answer the book question first because interestingly enough, I think it was like this blessing in disguise for the book because as the book started to come out, even though I went into the whole book process thinking, I don't want to play the sales game, I don't want to play the marketing game.
Not trying to be a bestseller.
I don't want to be a bestseller. I don't want to like hustle for every book sale. I just wanted this to be this beautiful creative process where I could just release this thing that I really loved out into the world, and wherever it found its way to whoever enjoyed it would be great. The closer I got to the book launch, the more the lure of that shiny object of trying to get more sales or trying to do more marketing pushes or whatever kind of took over a little bit. And so it kept tugging me towards that. And so when I got sick, it forced me to like really choose my priorities and be like, I don't give an F about marketing my book, period. I think I've posted like 2 photos of it on my Instagram. Like it allowed me the permission to just be like, this is not what's important right now. And that was my intention all along. So especially because with books, like this was not our primary source of income. This is not income that we were counting on. Book sales were not what we are supporting our lifestyle with. So it just was this like happy gravy on top type of project. And the publisher is pushing, copies on the back end for me. So yeah, it allowed me to kind of take a step back. Now, would I do anything differently? 100%. I think
you would call it your darkest life?
I would call it my deepest, darkest life. Maybe I should do a follow-up. I would change the way that we approach building WAIM.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think anybody who builds anything knows, wow, I would have changed a whole lot about that. And it's just something you have to learn going forward so that you can apply that to the next thing that you build or the next iteration.
Yeah. We paid a pretty hefty price for going so hard. and a lot of you were like, it took you guys 5 months. And it's like, yeah, but we were going 100% for 5 months, which is...
Yeah, and it cost a lot more money than we probably should have spent based on what we could have built kind of in our own kind of hack together way, but all lessons learned. Okay, let's keep going here because, again, this is going to be super long if we don't. All right, Steph's question. You know when people say sell something when you have to solve a problem, what if you don't really solve a problem but you provide culture and entertainment? How do you apply that mindset to what might be seen as vanity or luxury style offerings? Like people don't need art, but selling it is something that you want to do. So how do you do that? I mean, I think one of the things that I'll say, just jumping in here, because I feel like I'm asking a question and you're answering a question. Not that there's a problem with that.
You're interviewing me.
Yeah, is that art does solve a problem for people in a way that it makes them happy and it entertains them and it gives them joy and it brings about something in their day that they didn't have before. And so I think there's a difference between having to position something as like luxury or like, and Steph, you probably know this extremely well, but like the brand Supreme, like I just think it's laughable that Supreme is like taken over as a brand in our society, but they've clearly done something right that makes people feel inclusive and want to spend a lot of money on this stuff. And so if you're providing value to people, and I'm not necessarily saying like the commoditization of just a brand to make money is a good way to go about it. But if you can create something where people feel included, they feel unique, they feel excited, they feel like they're just being a part of something. Yeah, like that's a valuable thing that we want as humans to feel. So I just think you have to stay in your mind of going, yeah, this doesn't necessarily solve a business problem, but it does solve people wanting to be entertained and enjoy it.
I will tell you the caveat to that is that you do have to market it a different way.
Right.
And I think more attention needs to be paid to the branding part of it and the like more top of the funnel awareness. Like you really have to hit it hard in terms of being everywhere kind of thing. You can still be strategic about that. You don't have to just like go and saturate the market. But I will just tell you from my own personal experience of starting something like Color Your Soul, which was a passion project of mine. And it was definitely not solving a need for people that was very easily it was definitely a luxury item. Like it was like this very soulful kind of monthly digital subscription. And so it was an add-on in people's lives. It wasn't like, oh, I need this to solve X, Y, and Z problem in my business. And it was the first time I had to sell it very differently. You know, I learned a lot of lessons that I would have gone back and sold it even kind of differently. But anyway, I would just say, yeah, I think there needs to be less of a focus on, hey, buy this thing because it solves this problem, and more like Jason said, the branding messaging part of, hey, we're about inclusion, or this is about entertainment, or this whatever, you know, not knowing what the product is.
And I think another part is when you're running an online business that solves a problem, it's very easy to do that yourself through your own channels, through your own social media account, through all this stuff, and you build your own audience. For art, I think you want to leverage other people's audiences.
Yeah.
So like galleries, other people who are influential, who might be the people who sell the thing you currently sell or sell something like it. So trying to get your stuff into shops, trying to get your stuff into galleries, trying to get your stuff in front of other people where the audience is already there is going to be so much more helpful than you trying to build it up yourself. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, do you want me to read some?
Yeah, sure, let's take over. Switch it up. We're switching over from business to a couple life things now.
Sandy asks, I was a vegetarian for 7 years and I'm heading back in that direction. I'm curious about veganism. As vegans, what do you eat on a typical day? First caveat, very important caveat, we eat vegan.
We're only vegan on Wednesday.
We eat vegan at home and we're vegetarian when we go out. So that means that sometimes we eat vegan when we go out, but I just want to make that very clear that sometimes we do eat things like cheese when we're out at a restaurant and it's very hard to find vegan food.
Some more than others.
I like cheese a lot. That being said, at home we do eat vegan, so I would love to go over what we eat on a typical day.
Okay, so let's go over kind of what a normal day is. Well, what's interesting is we used to do purchased meals that were prepared for us. And we took a break from that for about a year just because it kind of got mundane and we got bored of it, and the company we were using was really poorly run. But we're actually moving back to that starting next week, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But on a typical day, so we'll have some type of grain-free oatmeal is a breakfast option with like grain-free granola and just some other stuff thrown in, fruit, or what have you. A little
bit of maple syrup on top.
Or I make a homemade bread, or we'll sometimes buy sourdough bread and we'll do avocado toast.
With like a little bit of vegan butter.
I would say that's Caroline's favorite breakfast.
It's my favorite of all time. Even with Jason's bread, which is very good, like 2 or 3 slices because they're pretty small, mashed avocado, vegan butter, broiled, mashed avocado, salt and pepper, sometimes even like an almond, that chive almond spread underneath. Anyway, it's so good.
So for usually maybe we'll have like a snack in between there. And so that'll be some type of like, we have like a bunch of vegan dips that we're really into. So there's like some almond-based dips, there's some chai-based dips like Caroline talked about, almond crackers, or we have some rice chips that we've been kind of big on, the tortilla chips. So those are usually like a snack in between lunch. And then the lunch is usually some type of like roasted vegetables. So we'll bust out the cast iron, chop a bunch of different vegetables like Brussels, carrots, fingerling potatoes, cauliflower, broccoli. And just kind of toss it in, throw a couple spices on, throw it in the oven for 40 minutes. The oven's right there, that's why I looked over there. So that's typically lunch. And then afternoon snack is usually something around the same as like our morning snack, if we have it. Sometimes we don't. And then we cruise into dinner time, which really varies. Like,
yeah, like last night we had something we hadn't had in a long time, which was rice, jackfruit, like the lime something jackfruit, black beans. We basically did like little burrito bowls. Black beans, avocado. Yeah, so that was really good, kind of like Mexican night. And then a lot of times we do veggies in the cast iron. Sometimes we do veggie tacos.
Yeah, last night I did cauliflower steaks in the cast iron. So I like cut a cauliflower into steaks, seasoned it with some curry and chili, and some nutritional yeast, and it creates like a little bit of a crust on it. And it's actually
another staple in our household is we have a local guy who creates lentil pasta.
This is great. It's really good.
It is so good. It's packed with protein. It is not like a lot of those like grain-free pastas that you get where it's like gummy and it's just like fake tasting. He makes it fresh. And I
almost hate talking about it because people can't get it.
I know. And we usually buy it from the farmer's market, but he also has a couple that are refrigerated and packaged at a local market. So we get those. And then we'll do some version of like pesto. We'll do like sauteed mushrooms. One of our favorite ones recently is like the noodles with snap peas and mushrooms.
Pesto sauce.
Yeah.
Sometimes homemade pesto, sometimes.
No, why did we make it? Oh, the green sauce.
We got a green sauce, yeah. That's a typical day. I think that's pretty normal for us. Like I said, we're moving back towards a meal prep company because it just takes a lot of time and effort. And honestly, I think we've been spending more money eating out because we've been bored with what we've been making at home. So we wanted to kind of rein that in, and it actually ends up saving us money. So good luck going back to vegetarianism, Sandy. We're ready for you to do that.
We're big fans. It's almost coming up on our 2-year non-meat-iversary.
Vegiversary?
Again, I don't like saying vegan, but like, because, you know. Oscar says, what kind of coffee do you recommend to prepare at home? Take it away, Jason.
I like this question. I make our coffee every single morning. I am the live-in barista here. Let's not have you read this and be distracted.
Sorry, was I doing that?
So I'm the live-in barista. You can come into my coffee shop and I will prepare for you a hand-crafted pour-over cup of coffee.
I won the husband lottery.
Yeah, every morning I make coffee for both Caroline and myself. But I use the Fellow Products pour-over, I think it's called the Stag system. So I have this amazing kettle with like a digital display that's really nice, and then this pour over carafe that has a filter that sits on top, and I grind the beans every single morning 10 seconds before I put them in the carafe. No joke, that's not like, oh, I'm super anal. I am super anal. And I measure it out, so the carafe sits on a little scale, and I do 50 grams of water, and then I wait till the coffee blooms, and then I do another 300 grams, and then I finish with 250 grams, 600 grams of total coffee for both of us, split into 2 cups. I preheat our cups. I have Caroline's stevia waiting for her. I'm pretty anal about our coffee situation. But like, you had your girlfriends in town earlier this year for a girls trip, and you made them a cup of coffee the way that I make it, and your friends were like, that's the best coffee I've ever had.
Big hit.
Yeah.
Guys, if you want to be the hostess with the mostest, I can't cook worth shit, but I was like, I will make you guys coffee every morning, and it was a big hit.
And where I get the beans from, I have a subscription to a company called Tectonic Coffee. They're actually out of LA. So they send beans every 2 weeks. And then I also get some locally from a roaster that we really like that we go to pretty often. And then sometimes I'll just buy random beans online from different single origin companies, like Methodical Coffee is another one.
Great, great answer. All right.
You're back in the iPad.
Oops. Candace says, what do you guys foresee for this Slack community going forward? Does it feel like the transition from BOF to WAIM has worked, or does the system need some tweaking? Candace, I feel like that's a loaded question. Do you have suggestions?
This is an interestingly timed question because we're currently in the process of this new 6-month product plan that we're working on, which we talked about in another meeting, which we shared with you guys, a little update on as well via email. And so it's been interesting. I'm not even sure I can say that the transition from BOF to WAIM has been what I thought it would be. I will say that the 75 new members between all the launches we've had so far, and then some people have canceled, so I think it's like 60 actual members who have stayed around, feels like it's been a really good transition member-wise.
I mean, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I don't know what, like, if I thought to myself, oh, I wish it had gone like this, I don't know what I would say. Like, I don't know what that vision would be that's any different from what it is right now. To me, the success of the Slack channel is just that people are chatting, people are there, people are supportive, encouraging, and helpful. And so if that's going on, then I feel like it's doing its job.
I constantly think there are better ways for our community to kind of interact and have like a holistic approach between all of our WAIM resources, but there's literally no way to do that unless we custom build it. Like, we would have to build a chat into the dashboard that we already built so that you could almost say like pull in an article and do all this stuff. And I just don't think we're ever gonna get to this place where there's like a perfect way that the community interacts with all the things that we have. And it's just gonna have to be one of those things where people are willing to go, yeah, we have the Slack community or whatever we use for the chat thing, if that stays with that. And then we have the resources over here, and then we do workshops kind of through this technology. And it's just because everything solves a need in its own way, and to build it completely custom, we already went part of that route, and it's just not worth the time and effort.
Well, I mean, yeah, maybe if one day when we do hit our, enough.
When we're just swimming in money.
Well, if we hit our enough goal and we have enough months of that, then we could definitely set money aside to build something custom. So like that would be that
But for now, I think
gotta stick with us.
The short answer would be the transition's been good. We have some tweaking to do on the offering so that people really understand what they're getting as new members. And then I think we're gonna try something in the new year with this new 6-month plan of actually bringing back a lifetime option to kind of opt into, to not just be monthly forever. So we'll see how it goes.
I think it's also worth recognizing that people are people, and some people are gonna have seasons where they're really active in Slack, and some people are gonna have seasons where they're not. And this is something that we had to learn as product builders, is just, you can only do so much before it's in the hands of the person who's using your product. So it's like, we always talk about like, how can we get people to actually use more of our courses, or how can we, and we can certainly come up with ways that we can try to do that, but I can't reach through the computer screen and hold somebody's hand while they go through a course. I just can't. Yep. It's the same way I can't reach through a computer screen and say, hey, have you checked in Slack? People just have busy lives, and that's okay.
But we are testing some things. We are changing and tweaking some of like the onboarding stuff and trying to make it a little bit better and a little bit more, because we have heard from people who are like, oh, I feel like I'm joining this big group of people who already know each other, and I'm kind of out on the outlier, and we don't want it to feel that way. So we're trying to kind of help people figure that out. So we'll see. It's going to be a continuing journey. All right, 2 questions left. I'll go back to reading. Ray Chili said, how do you focus on visibility while it's making sure your product and boundaries, while you protect your boundaries and sense of self? She said she asked this because she was super visible and had many male trolls that did everything they could to undermine her, make her look bad, and generally were disgusting and threatening, which is awful. So she's worried if she becomes more visible now, when she wants to scale her business, will those people come back and affect her and invade her boundaries?
Rachel, first of all, that sucks, and that is awful, and I wish that I had a solution to that problem. I don't, but I do think that just by you asking that question, you're thinking the right thing, which is to constantly be asking yourself, is this worth it, right? Like, if I do X, is it going to be detrimental to my mental health? And only you can kind of answer that question for yourself.
I mean, I dealt with some of this a little bit when I had my I Wear Your Shirt project, because it was just very popular. And so with popularity, you get the trolls.
I think is the heart of her question.
Yeah, and I just think that in some of those instances that I remember, I mean, it sucked to get angry emails or nasty DMs or like stupid stuff that people were saying in comments on various things. But I just was ruthless with the ban hammer. Like, that's what for me, it just became like delete comments, block people on this, like that's the thing I could do, not engage with them, not fight back, not do anything at all, not acknowledge them, and just not try and think about it, not try and let those people win, because that's essentially what they do when you don't show up and do the thing you want to do, is they're winning. They're holding you back from being the person you want to be. So I just think you have to give yourself permission to go, if I'm gonna do what I wanna do, these people might come back around, and I just have to be ruthless with blocking them, deleting them, doing those things. I do think a little bit has changed in the way that social media networks are dealing with abuse. Like, I think they're much better at, like, when you report abuse, they do something about it. I don't think they necessarily were that good a couple of years ago, but I think they're getting much better now.
They still have a long way to go.
Totally, but it's much better than it used to be.
Yeah, and I think just hearing you say that, I think you're right. Like, ultimately you have to make this decision where it's like, am I molding my behavior based on these people that are so petty and so, like, obviously have terrible things going on in their own lives that they would want to bring you down in that way. But I also know, being like the more sensitive person, like, it's a very real thing to be affected by those things. So maybe even making like rules for yourself in terms of, okay, I'm gonna ban this person and I'm not gonna go like looking through comments, or I'm not gonna, you know, I don't know what those protections are that you need to kind of develop for your own self, but having that discipline to not even go there or not sit in that place. But I hate that that's happening, Rachel, or that it happened in the past.
I know you asked the other question about scaling your business and hiring someone. One thing you could think about is basically having a virtual assistant who reads all of your emails, all of your comments, all of your things before you do, and can clear that stuff out so that you don't necessarily see it. Could be a way that you think about doing that, and maybe you ease yourself back into it as opposed to dealing with potential, you know, that stuff kind of coming up.
Definitely.
All right, Amelia has the last question. I'll let Caroline read it because it's a really nice question.
Amelia says, you both give us so much value, time, vulnerability, and support in Slack, the podcast, on email. What is the one thing we can best do for you in return except remaining paying members? Definitely that.
Yeah.
What is the one thing?
I mean, if you guys could all just pay us $1,000 every month, that would be easy. Like if you guys just start doing that, I mean, our lives would be much easier, obviously.
The first thing that comes to mind, which a lot of you are already doing, especially the ones of you that are watching this video right now, but it's like, because we put so much heart and time and effort into the things we create for you guys, just by you consuming it or showing up on live calls or commenting on resources or sharing our articles, like that to me, just knowing that it's actually affecting your life is enough for me.
Yeah, I think my biggest ask is that you go out of your way to try and help another WAIM member in some way, shape, or form. So if it's just one person who you see who's asking something in the Shameless Ask channel in Slack, and maybe no one's answered their question or no one stepped up, go out of your way to try and help. And even if you can't, just try and be there and support them and offer something. I just think the more that we can create this culture within WAIM where we're all supporting each other and we're all in this even playing field of understanding, we're all wandering aimfully together, that to me makes me the happiest. Like when I wake up every morning and I see all these Slack conversations where people have already chimed in and there's like 17 replies to someone's question, my heart is just like exploding out of my chest because I just love seeing that, and that means the world to me.
Same. And I just want WAIM to be that one place where business sometimes can feel so like kind of close to the vest. Like we're all afraid that if we show our weaknesses that people are gonna think that we don't know what we're doing. And the truth is we're all just figuring stuff out and the world is changing all the time. So I want WAIM to be all of the things that Jason mentioned, but also that place where we can be actually really honest with each other and not judge each other for, you know, or feeling like we don't have it figured out. Like I want it to be the one place where you can come and say, hey guys, I don't know what I'm doing with X, Y, and Z. And you know that there's all these humans on the other end of that aren't thinking to themselves, oh, well, she doesn't have her shit together, or oh, he doesn't know what he's doing.
No dumb questions.
No dumb questions.
Never dumb questions.
That's another part of the culture that I want to perpetuate. So.
Last thing I'll say, if you guys ever have feedback for us, any of you watching this, and you want to give us thoughts or ideas,
send it to Jason so you don't hurt Carol's feelings.
And that's totally, no, seriously, I think that's actually the better way to do it because it doesn't affect me. And
no, I'm getting so much better at taking feedback, like, and not having it hurt.
Yeah,
like, if anything, when people cancel, it's because you see all the emails. But I'm like, it's okay. Like, they had stuff going on in their life.
But seriously, anything that you guys think we can do to improve, not necessarily that we can make that happen, but I always take suggestions and feedback and I try and put them somewhere and keep it categorized and try and figure out how we can make it happen and listen for multiple people to ask for something and then we try and implement or change it. So
we appreciate you guys so much and thanks for just being here.
Yeah, it's our first Q&A. We hope you enjoyed it. If you want us to do a follow-up of this, another Q&A, maybe we'll start doing this monthly-ish. We'll set you guys up with a place to ask questions kind of like a week or two before we record this, probably in Slack. We're sending an email out as well. But if you enjoyed this, leave a comment on the YouTube video. Let us know if maybe you had an answer for any of these questions that you were like, oh, I just wanted to answer that person's question. Or if you have a question you want us to ask or answer in the future, maybe go ahead and leave it and get ahead of yourself and I'll save it somewhere.
I really wish we had avocado toast right now.
Sorry, babe. It's one of those oatmeal days.